She lived as a woman for 20 years. One doctor visit exposed everything and led to her brutal death. For nearly 20 years, Monica Delaney woke up every morning before her husband. She'd slip out from under the covers without a sound, tiptoe into the bathroom, lock the door, and stare at her reflection, searching for cracks. Not in her skin, not in her makeup, but in the lies she'd been living. At 44, Monica had mastered the art of passing. Her routine was meticulous, blush blended just right, eyeliner crisp but not overdone, hair curled at the ends like she'd just stepped out of a salon. By the time her husband Marcus came downstairs, Monica Delaney looked like any Southern housewife in Birmingham, graceful, put together, and warm. But what Marcus never knew, what no one but her best friend Tamara knew, was that Monica hadn't always been Monica. She was born as Maurice, and for 20 long years, she'd lived a life built on silence, fear, and performance. Marcus Delaney was a big man, the kind people didn't question. Former high school linebacker turned night shift mall security guard. The kind of man who shook hands hard and said things like, "I don't trust folks who hide who they are." He prided himself on being traditional. God, country, and the Bible always came first. He wasn't abusive. He didn't yell or hit. But he was the kind of man Monica knew she could never tell the truth to. So she didn't. Their love story, if you could call it that, began in a laundromat. Monica was 24 and recently post-op, freshly moved to Birmingham with new paperwork, a new wardrobe, and an even newer name. Marcus was folding his uniforms, complaining to a stranger about the lack of real women left in the world. Monica laughed. He was charmed. And from there, something steady and oddly safe began. He never asked questions she couldn't answer. She never gave answers he didn't want to question. They got married 2 years later in a small church on the west side of town. Tamara, her only real friend, stood as witness. And for 2 decades, Monica played the role of the perfect wife. She cooked his favorite meals, smothered pork chops, collard greens with vinegar, hot buttered cornbread. She kept the house neat, picked up his dry cleaning, and worked part-time at a beauty salon down on Jefferson Avenue. No one suspected a thing. Not the neighbors. Not his co-workers. Certainly not Marcus. But lately, something had been wrong. The pain started as a dull throb at her lower abdomen. Easy to dismiss, just another sign of getting older. But then came the dizziness, the nights where she couldn't sleep, the days where her hands shook while holding a brush. Monica knew she couldn't ignore it anymore. Still, she hesitated. Doctors made her nervous. Examinations terrified her. Despite 20 years of living as a woman, there were still parts of her medical history that didn't line up, boxes she had to leave blank, questions she had to dodge. And this time, the stakes felt higher. The pain wasn't going away. It is getting worse. She finally booked an appointment at a small gynecology clinic downtown. It had good reviews. Private. Discreet. She thought it would be safe. She didn't know the doctor on staff was Ayanna Rhodes. And she definitely didn't know that Dr. Rhodes used to sleep with her husband. The morning of the appointment, Monica made eggs and bacon the way Marcus liked it. Extra crispy with a side of orange juice. She wore light makeup, a modest gray cardigan, and pearl earrings Marcus had given her on their 5th anniversary. "You okay, baby? You look tired," Marcus said, eyeing her across the table. "Didn't sleep great," she replied, sipping her coffee. "Got that doctor's thing today, remember?" He grunted. "Right. Don't forget to grab milk after. We're low." Monica smiled. Of course. They didn't talk about the appointment again. As she left the house, Monica paused at the doorway. She turned back and said softly, "I love you." Marcus looked up from his plate and replied, "Love you too, baby." It might have been the last true moment they ever shared. At the Crown and Glory hair studio, Monica tried to distract herself. Curlers, gossip, gospel music in the background. but the anxiety kept bubbling under the surface. She texted Tamara during her lunch break. Seeing the OB today. Feel sick. Hope they don't dig too deep. Tamara replied with a heart and a prayer emoji. She always worried this day would come. It wasn't like Monica had been reckless. Her old documents were sealed. Her insurance was clean. She'd only gone to clinics that didn't ask too many questions. But she'd never told this new doctor about her gender history. Never thought she'd need to. She had no idea the exam room she was about to walk into would become the site of her undoing. And yet, as terrifying as it was, part of her was relieved. Tired of hiding. Tired of jumping through hoops to keep a lie going. Tired of second-guessing every move, every outfit, every glance in the mirror. 20 years is a long time to hold your breath. Maybe it would finally be over. She just didn't know that for her, over would mean dead. The clinic smelled like lavender-scented disinfectant and artificial calm. Monica sat in the far corner of the waiting room, trying to appear unfazed as she filled out the intake form. Her hands trembled slightly when she reached the question about past surgeries. She hesitated. Her pen hovered over the checkbox. Then, like she had for 2 decades, she left it blank. A nurse called her name. Mrs. Delaney? Dr. Rhodes is ready for you. Monica stood slowly, smoothed her skirt, and followed her down the hallway. Her heels echoed louder than they should have. Dr. Ayanna Rhodes was exactly the type of woman Monica had always admired and quietly feared. Early 40s, beautiful, confident, a professional with a commanding presence. Her dreadlocks were neatly pulled back, and she wore pearl earrings that matched Monica's own. She didn't recognize Monica, but Monica had seen her before. In a photo, on Marcus's phone, years ago, when he briefly left it unlocked on the kitchen counter. Monica remembered the selfie. Ayanna and Marcus standing close together outside a hospital, laughing. She hadn't said anything then. She convinced herself it was just a co-worker. Now, Ayanna stood across from her in a white coat and polite smile, completely unaware that she had once been part of her husband's past. Or maybe not so unaware at all. "What brings you in today, Mrs. Delaney?" Ayanna asked as she flipped through Monica's chart. "I've been having some abdominal pain," Monica answered carefully. "Lower abdomen. Dull. Sometimes dizzy spells." Ayanna glanced at her. "And how long has this been going on?" "A couple weeks. Maybe longer. I thought it was stress." Ayanna nodded. "Any surgeries in your medical history?" Monica's throat tightened. Nothing that should be relevant. A pause. A flicker of something unreadable in the doctor's eyes. "All right," Ayanna said coolly. "Let's get you examined." Monica changed into a medical gown behind the curtain, her hands cold and sweaty. She looked at herself in the mirror, eyes wide with fear. For years, she'd evaded close physical exams, always choosing doctors who respected boundaries, who didn't dig. But this pain, it was forcing her hand. She lay back on the table and took deep breaths as Ayanna returned. The exam began normally, blood pressure, heart rate, reflexes. But as soon as Ayanna reached the pelvic area, her gloved hands paused. Her expression hardened. She stepped back. "Mrs. Delaney," her tone had changed, no longer clinical. "You didn't indicate you've undergone gender confirmation surgery." Monica's face went pale. "I didn't think it was relevant to the pain I'm having." Ayanna's jaw clenched slightly. "It's very relevant, especially given the long-term risks." There was a long silence. Then Ayanna slowly looked up from chart. "How long ago was the procedure?" 20 years, Monica whispered. "Out of state." Ayanna didn't say anything for a moment. Then, just as coldly, she resumed the exam, asking mechanical questions about hormone treatments and recovery from surgery. Monica answered them quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. But her gut was screaming. She knows. She knows too much. When the exam ended, Ayana scribbled notes and stood to speak. We'll need to do further tests, an ultrasound, maybe some labs. It could be scar tissue or something more serious. Then came the knock, and everything shattered. The exam room door opened without warning, and there stood Marcus, still in his uniform, broad-shouldered and sweaty, filling the entire doorway. "Monica," he said, confused. "The front desk said you were still back here." Monica sat up quickly, clutching her gown to her chest. Ayana looked between them. The realization dawned on her face like a dark sun rising. "This is your husband?" she asked. Monica couldn't respond. Her eyes were locked on Marcus, whose brow was furrowed in concern. Ayana nodded slowly. Then, in a tone that dripped with controlled cruelty, she said, "We were just discussing some post-operative features and the long-term effects of hormone therapy." Marcus blinked. "Post-operative? What the hell are you talking about?" he asked. Ayana turned to Monica. "He doesn't know, does he?" Monica shook her head slowly. Tears had already begun pooling in her eyes. "Doesn't know what?" Marcus asked louder, stepping forward. "I think you two need to talk in private," Ayana said calmly. "No, no more secrets. I want to know now." Monica tried to speak, but her voice cracked. "Marcus," she began, "I never wanted to hurt you. I just what?" His voice had risen into a near shout. "Just lied to me for 20 years. She took a breath. Her whole body was trembling. "I was born male." The silence after that felt like a chasm. Marcus stood frozen. "You mean," he started, then stopped. "You're a man." "No, I'm a woman. I've always been a woman," Monica said, tears streaming down her face. "The surgery, my transition, it just helped me align who I always was." But Marcus wasn't listening anymore. His face twisted into something primal. His hands curled into fists. "You disgusting liar." He slammed his fist into the wall, leaving a dent in the drywall. Ayana flinched but said nothing. "You've been tricking me? Living with me? Sleeping next to me for 20 years. Monica stood, clutching her clothes, trying to leave. "I'm going home," she said. "We can talk when you've calmed down." "The hell you are." Marcus lunged toward her, but Ayana stepped between them and pressed the security call button under the counter. "I've called security," she said. "Back off." Monica took the moment to bolt. She ran barefoot through the clinic halls, clutching her bag, tears blurring her vision. People stared. No one stopped her. Outside, the sun was beginning to set. She turned left, then right, no direction, no plan, just escape. Behind her, Marcus came storming out, yelling her name. "Monica, you lied to me. You think you can just run?" Down one block, then another. Monica's lungs were burning. Her side throbbed. She turned down a narrow alley, hoping to lose him. But she wasn't alone. A dark blue sedan pulled slowly down the road behind her. The driver was watching and waiting. The alley behind Jefferson Street was narrow and dim, flanked by aging brick buildings with crumbling paint and rusty fire escapes. Garbage bins lined the walls like forgotten sentinels. It smelled of old grease, mildew, and something sour Monica couldn't place. She didn't care. Her bare feet slapped against the concrete, and each breath came out in short, panic bursts. The hospital gown flapped behind her like a flag of surrender. She clutched her clothes in one hand, her phone and purse in the other. Her side throbbed where the pain had started weeks ago. Behind her, Marcus's voice echoed in the streets. "Monica, stop running. You don't get to just lie to me and disappear." She turned a corner and pressed her back to the wall, crouching low behind a dumpster. Her entire body shook. Sweat and tears mixed on her face. Somewhere behind her, tires screeched. The sound of a car slowing. A door closing. Heavy footsteps. Not Marcus. Different pace. Different rhythm. She peeked out. The dark blue sedan. Someone was approaching from the other end of the alley. A woman's silhouette. Dr. Ayanna Rhodes. What do you want? Monica shouted, her voice shaking. Ayanna stepped into the shadows slowly, her high heels clicking softly on the pavement. She was calm, too calm. Monica, she said, her voice low and even. I just want to talk. I didn't mean for things to explode like that back there. Monica stood up, clutching her bundle of clothes to her chest like armor. You planned that. You knew exactly what you were doing. I didn't know he didn't know, Ayanna replied, tilting her head. I figured after 20 years, surely something. Monica shook her head. You knew, and you wanted him to find out. Ayanna's expression changed, just slightly, a tightening of the lips, a narrowing of the eyes. I was trying to give you both the truth. The kind of truth you've been hiding for decades. You wanted him back, Monica said through clenched teeth. That's what this was about. You couldn't stand that he loved someone else. Ayanna stepped closer. He didn't love you. He loved a lie. And now he knows it. Monica took a step back, her heel brushing against broken glass. I'm going to file a complaint against you, she hissed. Medical ethics, confidentiality. You crossed the line. You destroyed everything. Ayanna laughed. Soft, almost bitter. You think people will believe you? A transgender woman, hiding her identity for 20 years? Versus me, a respected doctor in this community. You think your title protects you from what you did? Monica spat, and that's when it happened. Ayanna's smile disappeared. Her eyes went flat. In one smooth motion, she stepped to the side, picked up a piece of rusted rebar from the ground, left behind by a construction crew weeks earlier, and swung it once, fast and hard. The sound of impact echoed through the alley like a baseball bat hitting wet cement. Monica staggered, her knees giving out. The world tilted. Blood rushed down the side of her head. She didn't scream. Ayanna stood over her, breath shallow, shoulders rising and falling like waves. Her hand gripped the rebar with white knuckles. She struck again, and again, and again. When it was over, Ayanna stood in silence, the rebar slick and dripping. She looked down at Monica's motionless body, face unrecognizable, gown soaked in crimson. Her chest didn't rise. Her fingers didn't twitch. Ayanna blinked once, twice. Then she dropped the rebar. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a pair of latex gloves, already worn, and peeled them off, turning them inside out before tossing them into a nearby bin. She adjusted her coat, wiped her face, and walked calmly back toward her car. Just another woman in a hurry. The next morning, drizzle painted the alley in hues of gray. Patrol Officer Darren Kinley was finishing his morning route when something caught his eye. An arm, unnaturally twisted, jutting out from behind the dumpster. He approached, radioed it in. Dispatch, this is Unit 14. I've got a body. Female. Alley off 7th and Monroe. Looks like a violent death. Send backup and forensics. Detective Elijah Carter arrived 20 minutes later. He was in his late 50s, tall and quiet, with eyes that had seen too much. He didn't rush. He didn't flinch. He squatted beside the body with slow, deliberate movement and surveyed the scene. The victim's face was destroyed, but the ID in the torn purse confirmed it. Monica Delaney, age 44, no priors, married to Marcus Delaney. Carter stood up and walked the alley slowly. Blood spatter on the wall. Purse contents scattered. Torn fingernails. Signs of struggle. Rage. Not a clean kill. And not an accident. The murder weapon, rebar, lay a few feet away, bloodied. No visible prints. Gloves, maybe? Canvass the area, Carter told his team. Check every store and building for security footage. Then he looked up. At the far end of the alley, mounted above a liquor store, was a small black camera. Slightly tilted, red light blinking. Start with that one. By mid-afternoon, the footage came in. First frame, Monica running out of a medical building, barefoot, distraught. Second, Marcus exiting seconds later, shouting after her. Then pause. Frame by frame. A dark blue sedan idling across the street. Following. Slowly. Freeze that, Carter said. Zoom in on the driver. The image was grainy, but not useless. A black woman. Hair pulled back. Medical coat visible in the car seat beside her. Enhance the plates, he said, and run it. By nightfall, he had a name. Dr. Ayanna Rhodes. OBGYN, local clinic. No criminal history. Former employee at the same shopping center where Marcus Delaney worked as security. Interesting. Very interesting. Back at the station, Carter reviewed the coroner's preliminary report. Blunt force trauma. Time of death between 7:15 and 8 p.m. Severe head injuries. Multiple blows, many delivered after death. Classic overkill. Rage. But there was something more chilling than rage in the way the blows were administered. Intent. Control. And something Carter always watched for, gloves. Passion kills rarely involve gloves. That detail, that pointed to planning. And planning pointed to someone else entirely. Not the husband. Someone with motive. Jealousy. Obsession. Knowledge. Someone smart enough to make it look like a crime of passion. And calm enough to walk away. Marcus Delaney didn't sleep the night Monica died. He didn't eat. Didn't answer his phone. He sat in his darkened living room. Lights off, curtains drawn, the revolver from his security job lying on the coffee table in front of him. He stared at it for hours. He wasn't sure if he wanted to use it. On himself? On someone else? He didn't know. By dawn, Marcus made a decision. He took a shower, shaved, put on a clean shirt. Then he got in his car and drove straight to the Birmingham Police Department. I heard on the news, he told a front desk officer. My wife, Monica Delaney. She was found dead last night. The officer looked up. And you are? I'm her husband, Marcus said. And I didn't kill her. Detective Elijah Carter was waiting when Marcus was led into the small gray interrogation room. He'd seen men like Marcus before, tough, proud, emotionally knotted up so tight they might crack or explode, but never in between. Marcus sat heavily in the metal chair. His hands rested on the table, palms down. His eyes were bloodshot, but clear. I appreciate you coming in, Carter said, sitting across from him. Not many do. I had to, Marcus replied. This ain't something I can hide from. Carter nodded slowly. You said you didn't kill her. Want to tell me why you felt the need to say that right away? Marcus exhaled, leaned forward. Because I know how it looks. I chased her. I yelled. I lost my mind in that clinic. And now she's dead. What else are people gonna think? Walk me through what happened after the appointment, Carter said, voice steady. Marcus licked his lips. After the doctor, Rhodes, told me what Monica really was. I lost it. I ain't gonna lie to you. It felt like my whole damn world collapsed in 10 seconds. And then, she ran out. I followed her. Screaming, cussing, yeah. I was angry. I felt betrayed. 20 years. She lied to me for 20 damn years. You know what that does to a man. Carter didn't respond. I chased her 2, maybe 3 blocks. She turned into that alley off 7th. I tried to catch up, but I lost her. Some car pulled out in front of me, blue sedan. I had to go around. By the time I got to the alley, she was gone. Did you keep looking for her? I walked around, called out her name. After 20 minutes, I went home. I didn't know what else to do. Carter studied him carefully. Why didn't you call the police? What was I gonna say? That my wife turned out to be a man and ran off into the night? That I was yelling like a lunatic and she disappeared? Hell, I didn't even know if she was alive or just hiding from me. Then you left town. Went to my brother's place in Montgomery. I needed time to breathe. Brought your gun with you. Marcus paused. I always bring it when I leave for more than a day. Habit. Carter leaned back, his eyes never leaving Marcus. Do you regret chasing her? Marcus stared at the table. That was the last thing she ever heard from me. My anger. My disgust. That's what she carried with her when she died. Not love. Not forgiveness. His voice cracked. I didn't kill her, detective. But I didn't protect her either. Carter let the silence hang for a moment. He scribbled notes, but didn't stop watching Marcus. The man wasn't defensive. He was drowning. The detective had interrogated guilty men before. Men who pretended to cry. Men who knew how to weaponize guilt and grief. But Marcus didn't fit that mold. He looked like someone who'd just realized too late what he was really losing. Later that afternoon, Carter sat with his team in the squad room, going over the evidence. Timeline. Monica ran out of the clinic at 6:41 p.m. Marcus followed seconds later. Surveillance footage showed a blue Ford sedan pull away from the curb and tail them. Registered to Dr. Ayanna Rhodes. Time of death, between 7:15 and 8 p.m. Marcus's phone pinged near the alley until 7 o'clock, then again back near his home around 7:30. No cell data placed him at the alley during the time of death. There was no DNA match under Monica's fingernails for Marcus. But there was female DNA and smudged glove prints on the rebar. Not bare hands. Carter knew what that meant. Someone came prepared. Someone who knew what was coming. The next step was to confront Marcus about Dr. Rhodes. Carter returned to the interrogation room, this time with a photo. You recognize her? He asked, sliding it across the table. Marcus looked down at the image of Ayanna. He tensed. Yeah, he admitted. More than just your wife's doctor? Marcus sighed. We had a thing. About 3, months ago. Didn't last long. Just a few dinners. A few nights. Did she know you were married? Yeah. She didn't care. Said she was tired of men who pretended. She liked that I was honest. Marcus scoffed bitterly. Hell of a joke now. Why'd it end? I told her it was a mistake. I didn't love her. That I wasn't going to leave Monica. Did she take it well? Marcus hesitated. She was calm, but cold, like she'd flipped a switch. I didn't think anything of it. Now Carter was connecting dots. Ayanna Rhodes, spurned lover, trained physician, emotionally calculated. She had motive, access, knowledge of Monica's medical history, and possibly enough hate to make it personal. When the results came back from Monica's fingernails, female DNA, matching a strand of hair from Dr. Rhodes' office, Carter knew what he had to do. Before the arrest, he sat with Marcus one last time. She knew, didn't she? Marcus asked, voice hollow. Ayanna. She knew Monica's secret. Yes, Carter said. And she made sure you did too. Marcus rubbed his face with both hands. She played us both. Maybe, Carter replied. But that doesn't mean you're innocent in all this. I know. Marcus nodded. But I'm not a killer. No, Carter said. But she is. Dr. Ayanna Rhodes sat in her office as if nothing had happened. The blinds were half drawn. A half-eaten salad sat beside her laptop. On the screen, patient notes. Routine. Mundane. Perfectly ordinary. Except for the fact that, less than 48 hours earlier, a woman had been brutally murdered less than 3 blocks from where she now sat, and Ayanna Rhodes had been the last person to see her alive. When Detective Elijah Carter walked into the clinic, he didn't ask permission. He flashed his badge at the front desk, made his way down the hallway, and knocked once on Ayanna's office door before opening it. She looked up, eyes calm. Too calm. Detective Carter, she said, like she was greeting an old acquaintance. I was wondering when you'd come. She didn't flinch when he sat across from her. Didn't ask what this was about. Didn't seem surprised. That alone made Carter uneasy. I'm investigating the death of Monica Delaney, he said. Ayanna folded her hands. A tragic situation. You saw her the day she died. Conducted a physical exam. Argued in front of her husband. You were there when she ran out of the clinic. Ayanna nodded slowly. Yes. I called security when the situation escalated. You also followed her out of the clinic in your car. That made her pause, only for a second. I was worried, she said. I thought someone should keep an eye on her. Marcus looked unstable. You followed her to the alley off 7th Street. She didn't answer. Carter leaned in slightly. We have security footage. It shows your car trailing Monica just before the time she was murdered. Ayana's lips pressed into a thin line. Monica was found with defensive wounds. She fought for her life. DNA from under her fingernails points to a female. A hair strand found in your office matches the sample. Now the comm cracked. Ayana blinked, then looked away. That doesn't prove I killed her. No, Carter said, but the gloves in your trash do. Latex gloves, blood-soaked. Monica's blood, recovered from your home garbage bin, along with a blouse, same one you wore the night of the murder. Also blood-stained. Her jaw tightened. Still no confession. But she knew. They both knew. Later that evening, Carter obtained a search warrant for Ayana's home and vehicle. In her car's trunk, they found a plastic bag, one pair of latex gloves, a white doctor's coat, and bloodied clothing rolled in a towel. She hadn't even tried to bleach them. She'd been too careful in the lead-up, too confident afterward. But in between, she'd slipped, and now it was unraveling. Back at the station, Carter waited while Ayana sat silently in the interview room. She'd asked for water. She hadn't asked for a lawyer. She stared at the wall, not the mirror, not the floor. When he finally entered the room, she looked up, face pale, voice steady. I want to make a statement. Carter sat down, clicked on the recorder. Ayana crossed her legs and began to speak, like she was giving a lecture at a medical seminar. I met Marcus Delaney 3 years ago, she said, at the medical center at Jefferson Mall. He was working night security. I just transferred in from Atlanta. She smiled faintly. He was strong, quiet, wounded in a way I recognized. I started staying late to accidentally bump into him. Eventually we talked. Then we spent time together. Dinners, drinks. We kissed once in the parking lot. Carter didn't interrupt. Ayana continued. He told me he was married. I didn't care. He didn't talk about her much. Just that she was quiet and predictable. I thought he was bored. I thought I could be what he needed. Her voice turned colder. Then he ended it. Said it was a mistake. That he couldn't betray her. She looked Carter directly in the eye. But I already knew he had. A few weeks later, I saw his wife for the first time, by chance in the parking lot. She was putting groceries in their car. He kissed her on the cheek. She looked ordinary. Nothing special. I remember thinking, that's who he chose. Her hands clenched into fists. I started watching her. I needed to understand what she had that I didn't. I found out where she worked, who she talked to, where she got her prescriptions. Carter raised an eyebrow. You were stalking her. I prefer to say observing. Ayana replied coolly. That's when I saw the pills. Spironolactone, estradiol, hormones. She was a transgender woman. Yes, Ayana said. And that changed everything. You knew Marcus would never accept that. He once told me, verbatim, that trans people were mentally sick and should be locked up. Said it during a news segment about a local trans teen who got bullied. He laughed. So you weaponized his prejudice. Ayana nodded. I didn't plan it. But when Monica booked the appointment, on her own, I realized it was a perfect opportunity. And you made sure Marcus came. One call. I told him his wife looked pale, that she seemed unwell. He was concerned. I knew he'd show up. Carter leaned back, hands folded. Did you intend to kill her? Ayana was quiet for a long time. No, not at first. Her voice dropped an octave. But when she confronted me in the alley, said she'd sue me, ruin me, I don't know what came over me. Her hands trembled slightly. There was a piece of rebar, left near the dumpster. I picked it up. She screamed at me, called me sick, said I was obsessed. And then She exhaled sharply. I swung. There was silence. A heavy one. Carter said nothing, just watched as Ayana's face finally began to crumble. She didn't deserve it, Ayana whispered. I didn't want to lose. I didn't want to be the woman who got left behind. You were never the woman, Carter said, voice even. You were the other woman. Ayana let out a bitter laugh. Story of my life. The official charge came 2 hours later. Murder in the first degree. Ayana Rhodes was denied bail. As she was led out of the precinct in handcuffs, news cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. But she didn't speak. She kept her head high, as if pride could replace innocence. Meanwhile, Carter stood in the hallway outside the interrogation room, watching the officers close the case file. It was over, at least on paper. But for Monica? For Marcus? For all the people still living half-truths? The damage was far from done. The church was small, old, and quiet. The kind of place where hymns echoed off wood paneling and the stained glass windows painted the pews in reds and blues when the sun hit just right. That morning, Birmingham was overcast. It felt appropriate. Outside, a crowd had begun to gather. More than anyone expected. Not just friends and neighbors. Not just co-workers from the Crown and Glory Hair Studio. But strangers, reporters, activists. People who had never met Monica Delaney, but had seen her face on the news, framed by tragedy. Wife of 20 years was a man. Husband denies killing her. OBGYN love triangle turns deadly. Trans woman beaten to death after truth revealed. The headlines were sensational. The story was everywhere. And now, so was the grief. Inside the church, a white casket sat beneath a simple wooden cross. The funeral home's makeup artists had done their best. Monica looked peaceful, serene. The bruises had been hidden, the trauma painted over. She looked like herself, like she wanted to be remembered, not as a victim, not as a shock story, but as a woman, a daughter, a wife. Tamara Jackson sat in the front row, her hands trembling in her lap. She'd helped pick the music. His Eye is on the Sparrow, Monica's favorite. She was the only person Monica had ever trusted with her secret. Now, she was the only one left to tell the truth. Marcus Delaney stood outside the church, away from the cameras. His black suit looked like it hadn't been worn in years. His tie was crooked, his eyes sunken. He hadn't slept. He hadn't spoken publicly. The media had painted him a monster, a closeted, conservative brute who snapped when his masculinity was threatened. And for a while, he believed it too. But that's not why he was there. He came because he had to say goodbye. He came because it was the only way he could breathe again. After the service, Tamara walked outside and saw him standing under a tree by the cemetery gate, hands in his pockets, staring at the ground. For a moment, she didn't move. Then she crossed the gravel and stopped beside him. Neither spoke. Then, gently, Tamara reached out and took his hand. Together, they walked the path to the grave. As they approached the casket, Marcus's steps slowed. His shoulders shook. When he finally stood over the hole in the earth where Monica would rest, he broke. I didn't know, he whispered, tears rolling down his face. God, I didn't know. Tamara squeezed his hand tighter. She was so afraid you'd find out, she said softly. She lived every day scared that one moment of truth would ruin everything. Marcus nodded slowly. It did. Then he pulled something from his coat pocket, a single red rose. He knelt, placed it gently atop the casket, and whispered, I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. I'm sorry I didn't see you. Across the street, Detective Elijah Carter stood beside his car, watching from a distance. He wasn't a religious man, but funerals always made him quiet. Reflective. They were the part of the job no one talked about, the aftershocks. The pieces left behind. He thought of Ayana Rhodes sitting in a jail cell, cold and alone. Of Marcus Delaney, grieving the woman he thought he knew. Of Monica, who had lived 20 years in silence, loving a man she could never truly be honest with. And he thought of how many other Monicas were out there, still hiding, still afraid. The trial made national news. Ayanna Rhodes was charged with first-degree murder and criminal breach of medical ethics. Her confession was played in court, cold, calculated, and damning. The footage of her car following Monica, the gloves, the blood, there was no reasonable doubt. The jury deliberated for just under 3 hours. Guilty. She showed no emotion as the verdict was read, just stared forward, unblinking. When asked if she had any final words before sentencing, she said, "I wanted to be chosen. I wanted to matter." The internet exploded with debate. Some called Marcus a murderer in spirit, even if not in law. Others called him a victim of betrayal, of manipulation, of a culture that never gave men like him the tools to understand their emotions. Trans rights activists held vigils for Monica across several states. Her photo, smiling, radiant, alive, was held high under banners that read, "Say her name, Monica Delaney. Truth is not a death sentence." News commentators debated endlessly. Should transgender people have to disclose their history to partners? Can love survive a secret that deep? How did a doctor become a murderer out of jealousy? But for those who truly knew Monica, none of those questions mattered. She was gone, and no headline would bring her back. After the funeral, Marcus disappeared for a while. He left Birmingham, quit his job, closed the house. Tamara heard from him only once, a postcard from New Mexico. It read, "Still trying to figure out who I am now. Still missing her every day. M." She framed it and kept it above her fireplace. Not as forgiveness, but as remembrance. Carter eventually closed the case file and moved it to archives, but not before writing a note on the final page. Some lies are told out of fear. Some truths are revealed out of cruelty. This case had both. In the end, no one wins, except maybe silence. They called it the most controversial murder trial of the year. But it wasn't just a trial. It was a battleground. Outside the Jefferson County Courthouse, protesters stood shoulder to shoulder for weeks. Some held signs that read, "Justice for Monica. Trans rights are human rights." Others carried banners that screamed, "She lied for 20 years. Deception isn't love." Cable news vans lined the block. Talk radio lit up for hours a day. Hashtags trended. TikToks went viral. Everyone had an opinion, even if they hadn't heard a single fact. Because this wasn't just about Monica Delaney. This was about what it meant to be honest, to be a woman, to be loved, and what happened when those truths collided. Opening statements began on a cold Monday morning in early March. The courtroom was packed. Local reporters, national correspondents, LGBTQ plus advocates, and curious onlookers eager for scandal. Dr. Ayanna Rhodes entered in a gray pantsuit, hair pulled back, expression blank. She sat at the defense table with two high-profile attorneys, one from Atlanta, the other from D.C. She refused to meet the eyes of the cameras. The prosecution team, led by Assistant District Attorney Nicole Reed, was fierce and focused. She opened with a simple, chilling line. "This case is about obsession disguised as care and murder disguised as medicine." Then she laid it all out. The affair Ayanna had with Marcus. The manipulation of Monica's appointment. The public outing in front of Marcus. The gloves, the rebar, the confession. And most damning, the security footage showing Ayanna's car trailing Monica seconds before her death. The defense took a different angle. They didn't deny the affair. They didn't deny Ayanna followed Monica. They didn't even deny she struck the fatal blow. But what they did deny was premeditation. They painted Ayanna as a spurned woman, emotionally manipulated by Marcus, devastated by betrayal, watching the man she loved go back to someone who had lied to him for 2 decades. It was not murder, the defense said. It was trauma, emotional collapse. A woman pushed beyond her breaking point. Some jurors nodded. Others did not. Tamara Jackson took the stand on day 3. She wore black and spoke with a voice that trembled but never cracked. She lived in fear, she said, every day, for 20 years. She thought the truth would destroy everything. And in the end, it did. She talked about Monica's love for Marcus, the effort she put into the marriage, the pain she carried in silence. She wasn't a liar. She was a survivor. Marcus was called next. His presence in court divided the room. Some people saw him as a grieving husband. Others saw him as a coward, or worse. He spoke quietly, with hesitation. I didn't know, he said. I should have, but I didn't. And when I found out, I reacted like someone who had never learned how to deal with the truth. When asked if he ever felt hatred toward Monica, he shook his head. Not hatred, confusion, pain. But I loved her, even after the truth. I just didn't know it fast enough. His voice cracked. I chased her. I yelled, but I didn't kill her. And now I'll never get to tell her I was sorry. As the trial continued, America watched and argued. Cable news shows brought in psychologists, gender experts, theologians, and criminal attorneys. Conservative commentators said Monica was deceitful. She manipulated a man for 20 years, they claimed. She created the conditions for her own death. Progressive outlets fired back. Her only crime was existing. Marcus was the one who couldn't accept the truth. Ayanna just did the killing. Some churches held vigils. Others held sermons condemning Monica's identity. Social media boiled over. Couples argued over dinner tables. Friends unfollowed each other. But in that courtroom, 12 jurors sat in silence, tasked with cutting through the noise and finding the truth. On the 17th day of the trial, the jury went into deliberation. They came back in 7 hours. Ayanna Rhodes stood as the foreman read the verdict. Guilty of first-degree murder. Guilty of abuse of medical position. She showed no emotion, not a flinch, not a tear. When asked if she had anything to say before sentencing, she stood and said, I was not a monster. I was just tired of being invisible. Judge Harper replied coldly, You will now be invisible for the rest of your life. Ayanna Rhodes was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Outside the courthouse, news broke like wildfire. Some cheered, some wept, some cursed the system. The story dominated news cycles for weeks. True crime podcasts, documentaries, op-eds. Everyone tried to explain what the trial really meant, but no one could agree, because this wasn't just a case. It was a mirror, and everyone saw something different. Back at his desk, Elijah Carter closed the case file and stared at the photo pinned to the board. Monica smiling beside Tamara, holding a tray of cupcakes at the salon. It was ordinary, domestic, real. He thought of her not as a trans victim or headline, just as Monica, a woman who wanted to be loved, who wanted to live in peace, who got caught in the crossfire of other people's shame, fear, and pride. He whispered, barely audible. She deserved better. The trial ended. The verdict was read. The world moved on. But not everyone could. Not Marcus. Not Tamara. And not the thousands of strangers who had followed every headline, every testimony, every cruel comment section online that dissected Monica's life as if it were content instead of soul. 6 months after the trial, Tamara stood in Monica's old apartment. The lease was finally up. She'd agreed to clear it out, pack what was left, and close the door for good. The place smelled like jasmine, Monica's signature scent. It lingered, faint but defiant. The walls were lined with photo frames. Monica at the salon, hair pinned up, laughing. Monica and Marcus at their 10th anniversary dinner. Monica and Tamara at a drag brunch, both wearing oversized sunglasses and sequins. No lies, no filters, just moments. Tamara opened Monica's closet and found a shoebox on the top shelf. Inside were a stack of handwritten letters. None had ever been sent. Each one addressed to my darling Marcus. I want to tell you the truth. Every day, I think about it. But I don't know if the man I love would still love me back. You call me beautiful when I'm not even trying. That's how I know you see me, not who I was. And I don't want to lose that. Maybe one day, I'll be brave. Tamara clutched the box to her chest and cried like a child. Not for the woman Monica used to be, but for the woman the world never fully allowed her to become. Marcus Delaney never returned to security work. He left Birmingham for a time, lived with his brother, tried therapy, failed at it, drank more than he should, fought with himself every night. He wasn't angry at Monica anymore. He was angry at the silence, at his own blindness, at the realization that the one person who had loved him unconditionally, even while hiding the hardest truth, had died hearing only his rejection. She didn't deserve that, he told the counselor during one rare session. She deserved grace, and I gave her judgment. In late fall, Marcus returned to Birmingham, not for a job, not for closure, but for a memorial. Thanks to donations from LGBTQ+ organizations, private donors, and several former salon clients who refused to let Monica be forgotten, a small public garden was built in her honor. The Monica Delaney Peace Garden opened just one block from where she lived. It wasn't grand, but it was beautiful. Roses, her favorite, lined the walkway. Lavender filled the air. A bench sat beneath a magnolia tree, etched with the words, "She lived in truth, even when the world demanded silence." On the day of the dedication, Tamara gave a speech. Her voice cracked halfway through, but she never stopped. She was my best friend, my sister, my light. She wasn't perfect. She was scared, but she was strong, and she loved without limits, even when it cost her everything. Then, without warning, Marcus stood from the back row and stepped forward. He took the microphone slowly, eyes down, voice low. "I didn't come here to speak," he began, "because I didn't feel like I deserved to." He paused. The wind rustled the roses. "I spent 20 years loving a woman who I thought I knew. And when I found out the truth, I didn't ask why. I didn't ask how hard it must have been. I just reacted." He looked up now, eyes glistening. But the truth is, she was still her. Monica didn't change. I just finally saw all of her. And I didn't know what to do with that. Silence fell across the garden. I loved her. I still do. And I will for the rest of my life. I don't care what she was born as. I care who she chose to be. And she chose to love me. His voice broke, and I failed her. Tamara walked up and placed her hand on his shoulder. Together, they stood before the plaque. Together, they whispered. Her name was Monica. Monica's story didn't fade. Not completely. True crime documentaries were made. Podcast episodes dissected the psychological warfare behind Ayana's motives. University lectures used the case to discuss the ethics of disclosure, medical confidentiality, and identity. One law school in Vermont even included it in their curriculum on gender and criminal justice. But perhaps the most powerful ripple came in a place no one expected. A single dad in Ohio, watching coverage of the trial with his teenage child, where his child finally said, "Dad, I think I'm trans." And instead of reacting with rage, he remembered Monica, and he said, "Okay, tell me what that means to you." Detective Elijah Carter retired 2 months after the sentencing. He packed up his office, took down the photos, the maps, the case files. But he kept one thing, a small laminated copy of Monica's bench plaque tucked inside his wallet. He never told anyone why, not even his wife. But every time he saw another headline about identity or another protest on TV, he'd take it out and read those words again. She lived in truth, even when the world demanded silence. And he'd whisper back, "Rest now, Monica. They hear you." Some true crime stories end with a killer behind bars, and a gavel slamming down. But some leave echoes. Some leave us changed. And some, like Monica's, remind us that the most dangerous weapon isn't a gun, or a fist, or even a rebar pipe. It's fear. Fear of who we are. Fear of being seen. Fear of what love really demands. Her name was Monica. Say it again. Remember it always.